Greetings and felicitations, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show. That means pre-going live on the radio station show. Lasts about 3 minutes because at 3 minutes after the top of the hour, we go live over on Odyssey Radio. That's ODYSY radio.com. And if you're watching over here on the YouTube channel, you can go over there and just hear the audio version. Or you can stick around here if you're seeing this elsewhere and you don't want to hear just the audio version. You can come on over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And I was going to put this up on Patreon tonight like I do every show. And I neglected to do that for some reason. I don't know why. I just thought of that. And so it's not playing on Patreon tonight, but we'll load it up after the fact. So, welcome to the show, everybody. Mechanics, good to see you over there. Joseph, good to see you in the chat room. Just popped in. And there's a ton of you waiting outside that, come on over into the chat room. Populate it one of these nights. Overpopulate it. Talk with everybody. And let your presence be known. Chad Sanders, good to see you, brother. And if you are not already a subscriber to my channel, hit the little subscribe button at YouTube. And if you so desire, you can hit the little join button, which is down below the video window, and you can join. I think it's $1, $5, or $15 a month that you can use to support this show. If you'd like, go over to Patreon. You can join over there as well. $4 a month, and you can support this show. Because right now we're commercial free, but even if we get commercials, we probably still keep all those joining features up. But we want to try to expand this show, doing other things. We've got some ghost investigations coming up that Rainey and I are going to do. Rocky is here this week, but he's not on the show. I'm going to see if I can get him over here for the show while he's in town. And we got about 30 seconds, and we go live over on the radio station. Again, that's Odyssey Radio, ODYSY radio.com. So we're going to go dark here in just a couple of seconds. Sit tight. We'll be right back with the live show.
Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, Scotty Roberts here. Welcome to the program. I am your host, Scotty Roberts, and this here is my show, the Intrepid radio program, right here on Odyssey Radio. That's ODYSY radio.com. And you can go over there and hear us in our audio format only. It's a radio station, so you can just hear the audio. And they do run rebroadcasts of this throughout the week. And you can go over there and see all the other shows that are supported by Odyssey Radio. All the fine entertainment and educational hours. You might even want to call it edutainment. So welcome to the program tonight. If you are just listening and want to see the video, not portion, the video not rebroadcast. Hold on. What's the word I'm looking for? Simulcast of this program. Fumbled with that one tonight. Come on over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And of course, the best part about the simulcast on YouTube isn't watching me talk. It's joining the chat room. So you can come on over to the chat room where a few people are already starting to gather, the fellow Intrepids. You can join them in conversation. Joseph is over there. He says, now this is hailing back to an earlier show last week. He says, I picked up some goodies over the weekend for myself. I got Stephen King, Cell, and Yevgeny Zamayatin. I don't even know how to say that. He got. Well, very cool. Let us know how those are and how to pronounce Yevgeny Zamyatin. Zamyatin. I have no idea. That sounds very Cyrillic to me. And well, I'm glad you got some. And I know you mentioned the other day, you got some of those kids' books we were talking about last week. So I hope your kids enjoy them and you enjoy reading them to your kids. The Dark is spectacular. Oh, and I left a book upstairs I was going to show you. The same the same artist who illustrated The Dark. My wife, while she was out of town this weekend with our middle daughter going to a Scout event down in Illinois, she picked up a book at the bookstore there, done by the same illustrator, and it looks really cool. I'll have to show it to you next time I bring it down here. So I hope you enjoy those books. And everybody else, have you heard those shows? We were talking about books last week. We talked about reading books to children, horror books to children. I hope you heard those shows, and if not, you can hear them right here on the YouTube channel. You can go to the archives and pick them up right there. You got a Monster Calls too. Oh my God, that is such a great book. I hope you got that in the hardcover, Joseph. That is a wonderful looking book. It's beautiful to put on the shelf and to be able to keep. You got Beyond the Bright Sea, Where the Wild Things Are. What do you do with an idea? The Dark, and Nicholas Grebe is in the mail. Forevermore I quest, till all my bones forever rust. There you go. Fantastic, Joseph. That is so good to hear. Michelle Cannon-Free, welcome to the chat room. Everybody else who's gathering over there, welcome. Glad to have you here tonight. Those of you who are still out there and haven't come into the chat room, come on in. Yes, a happy 44th birthday to my beautiful wife, Rainey, who is not here at the moment. Monday nights is their Scout nights, and so she's gone with Ellery. And Rainey is the Scout leader, or the Scout master, you could say, of the girls troop of the BSA in our town. The Boy Scouts of America, of course, a few years ago, they opened it all up, the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, BSA, Boy Scouts of America, 2 girls as well. And and I had a problem with that when they first started it. I said, there's nothing wrong with boys being mentored by men and girls being mentored by women. But there was political groups that wanted to push that. And some parents were against it. Some were okay with it because they said, look, now I don't have to go 2 places. I got all kinds of kids. I got boys and girls in our family. And so, Flynn, I think, was in 4th grade when they started that, maybe 3rd grade. He's now in 9th, going into 9th grade next year. So he's in 8th grade. So it's been a good thing for our family. And Rainey is the head of the girls' troops. So she enjoys it and has a good time with that. So I'm glad. Joseph, you are welcome for those recommendations. The book, you read The Dark tonight to my 5 and 9-year-olds. They are going to love it. What a wonderful book that is. Have fun with it, Joseph. Have fun with it. So everybody else, what do you think about this whole thing? I put up tonight's show. The topic is genocide. And what is Israel's objective in Gaza? And I put this up because I have a good friend, somebody I really love her. I think she's an amazing woman. I don't agree with her politics, nor does she agree with mine, but she's a good friend and loves me back. Somebody I've known for many years, since my festival days, since Sam, my 23-year-old son, was 3 and 4 years old. She used to play with Sam all the time out at the festival. And she's got some views. She's a wonderful, genuine, heartfelt, feeling, caring person. I would compare her a lot to like Michelle Cannon-Free over in our chat room. Somebody who is really digging deep into who they are and what they're doing and so on, and trying to be as real as possible. But she is still on the other end of the political spectrum from me. And there are some things she says sometimes that that I disagree with. And it's like, how do you disagree with a friend online, on social media, without making it look like a fight to the rest of the world? And now I've also noticed that there were people who liked some of her responses to me that were a little bit on the negative side, but not meant to be hurtful, just uh, uh, not liking what I had to say. And old friends of mine that don't talk to me anymore because of my politics and my views on things. There's wonderful people for you right there. We're loving and we're working on ourselves and how to get better, but we can't talk to you anymore because you voted for somebody we don't like, or you speak in about things that we disagree with. To me, that's a big so what. I got good friends who are on the total opposite end of the political spectrum from me. Look at Ruben Fasthorse, one of my dearest friends in the world. He was on a total opposite other end of the political spectrum from me. But that was not what governed our love and our care for each other as brothers. So all of that to say, she had mentioned some of the things that she has problems with, this friend of mine. And genocide was one of them. And I talked about that over there. And I said, "You're welcome, Michelle. Can I'm free." And I said, I sent her a message. I said, we talked about this particular topic. And I said, she said that the genocide, she just mentioned it in passing, didn't create a topic out of it, just in her topic, mentioned some of the things that were problems for her, the voting, whichever side. She doesn't like either one. And she mentioned the genocide in Palestine, something else. And I said, I got to stop you on that. I don't believe that there is genocide in Gaza. I do not believe Israel is committing genocide. And I said, by definition of the word, Israel is not committing genocide. And what is genocide? You all define it for yourselves. Write what you think it is in the chat room if you're over here. Genocide, what does that mean? Now, something I have noticed over the last few years is that there are more radical, maybe call them far leftist progressives, that will take words and redefine them for use as their political terminology. And I've grown really weary of that. And so telling my friend in a post that, this kind of stuff wearies me, and this, that, I don't want to do that because I don't want to hurt her or be against her, other than to say, look, I'm, and I told her in private, I was trying to be as polite as possible. And she accepts that totally. So we had some talks about some of this stuff after the fact, but I wanted to do a little, I wanted to talk tonight about the genocide. What do you think is Israel's objective in Gaza? Now, however, before I go any further, those of you may know this already. Some of you may know this already. I do a tarot readings, and I do a reading of the day over on my TikTok, which, by the way, let me say something about TikTok while we're at it. Let me take down this big banner. I'll say something about TikTok while I'm at it here. I have no problem with TikTok. I have no problem with the Chinese owning TikTok. You know what? The Chinese are not going to glean a whole lot of information from me. I also believe that the people who are Americans who own TikTok, own the American TikTok, that everybody is entitled to freedom of speech. And even if you don't like the format, even if you don't like who owns it. Now, let me tell you something. When I see joint congressional lawmaking targeted at something, it makes me wonder, what am I really seeing here, that both sides are against this? And the first thing that comes to my mind is the red flag of, what do they not want us to do on TikTok? TikTok is not like the rest of Silicon Valley. It's not like Twitter, or used to be. It's X now under Elon Musk. It's not like Facebook and Instagram, where the rules there censor you and curtail your free speech because they've got an agenda to pursue and put forward a narrative. TikTok doesn't have that. And I think those in government that are trying to shut that down for Americans are wanting to do so. Look at this, folks. It's not a conspiracy theory. They're wanting to do so because that is one of the venues left that is huge, that everybody uses, that's got a lot of youth using it in America, where nobody censors you for making a political statement. And so they cannot control the content. Therefore, it's a target for shutting down for whatever thing they want to bring up. So, yeah, exactly. Trump wants a gun. Boo. Biden wants a gun. Yay. Exactly, mechanics. So, it's not just TikTok, says Steph. It's an in to be able to shut down any edit they don't want out there. Free speech. Exactly. It's an issue of free speech. But this is why I'm specifically about TikTok. I don't have a problem with TikTok. TikTok needs to stay where it is without United States interference through legislation that is meant to not give people an outlet where they can say whatever they want to say. That's what I believe. I take a drink. So today on my TikTok, which you can go see, I'm just Mr. Scotty Roberts is my TikTok, and Mr. is spelled out Mister. I did this reading today, and I did a reading, and I asked in my head, after seeing this post of my friends on genocide and the other things she was saying, I said, and the elections and so on, I said, give me a card that speaks to this, how we ought to look at this, how we ought to deal with the elections, with who we choose to be president, with who we choose to be legislators, with the issue of Israel and so on. I said, throw us a little bone today. Simple. And this is not, these are words to live by, I think, but you can do what you want with it because it's tarot. But the card that I drew after a big shuffle was the Hierophant. Now, you see the Hierophant card. It's from the Major Arcana. And the Hierophant is a card that shows the imagery of a very orthodox-looking priest. The idea with this card is that the representation of this card is that which is stable, traditional. There's another word that I used. It's a card that stands for the stuff that is there that we hail to as our traditions, as our what's the word? There's a certain word I'm looking for, and I can't think of what it is. Hold on a second. It's going to come to me. But there is what we do with this card is we look at it and we say, this is a card that represents whatever we're doing. It's not just okay, but it's incumbent upon us to fall upon the things we know, the traditional things that we know, that we fall on those things because those are the things that transcend our biases. And here, hold on a second. I'm looking for the word I actually used this morning, because it's very telling. And for some reason, I am not hitting on that particular word in my head. Pardon me while I do this. I just got to look up what I said exactly about this. And I'm just going to go, yeah, that word. It's tradition. It's convention. That's the word I'm looking for. It's the convention of things. It suggests that it's better for us to follow the social structures which are established and have their own traditions. And it's embracing conventional things. It suggests that we have a certain desire to actually follow a process which has been well established. So when I'm asking a question about how do we approach the elections, how do we approach the question of what's going on in Israel, in the Middle East, and the wars in the world, it says, don't step outside of the box. Now, the answers to these questions are not the things that you step out of the box to find an answer for. This is not the time to be the young Turk, to take on the world and be opposed to the traditional things that have always existed and try to do something new. Saying this is the time where we stick with convention and the things that we know, the traditions we know. Sometimes it's okay to do this, folks. You don't have to be this new bright, shining voice out there. I've got a new way. Maybe the new way is to stick with the old way. So this is telling us that's what the Orthodox priest represents. It's okay to go to the old traditional way of doing things. And what that's telling me when we come up with questions of the genocide, how to deal with Israel, how to, at least mentally, how to vote, what the election's going to be, it's time to not look for some new fad, some new thing. As my friend had also mentioned, why aren't people voting for the third and fourth party candidates? Because right now, it's not a time to do that. It's a time to look to convention, to bring things back in order. And once you have things in order, then you are able to step outside the box and look at ways to incorporate new changes. That's what I believe this card told us this morning. So I did this reading this morning on that. Sorry, I got hung up on that word. Convention was all that was in my mind. I was saying it in every other way except the word, and so I needed to go look it up. So the convention of how we do things, conventionality. I'm looking at some of the things you said. I'm sure they're waiting. Then they will pounce on Rumble and Truth Social. They'll try to shut everything down, especially before the elections. Finally watched last week's show tonight when I got it. Okay. Something different there. Sorry about that. So you're talking about Skinwalker Ranch too, that's back. I got to catch up on that show. I got to tell you, it was pretty good. The last episodes I saw of that show. And so here we are talking about genocide. What about genocide? I asked this question at the beginning. Is Israel committing genocide? Do you believe that Israel's attack on Palestine, Gaza, is a hidden attempt to wipe out the Palestinians, which is what some people believe is going on? Scott Allen says, in my opinion, Kennedy's the best choice, but he screwed himself with that VP choice. Yeah, I think he did. I really do think he did. That wasn't a good choice. I don't know what led him to do that. That to me seemed a little odd. So, on the issue of genocide, what did Israel do? Did Israel come out and blankly say we're going to invade Gaza and wipe out all the Gazans and every Palestinian that exists? I don't have to go through again all the stuff about Palestine and the naming. Palestine is not a nation. It never has been. It's a region. The Palestinians, the Gazans, have never had a country. Gaza is inside of Israel, but not part of Israel. Israel has always opened up its borders to Gazans or Palestinians. There are people who were born and grew up in Palestine, Gaza, that are people that are Israeli citizens as well. They come over, some of them are judges in Israel. They're politicians in Israel. They are shop owners, entrepreneurs in Israel. There are tens of thousands of Gazans that every day cross the border into Israel and work. Israel has said, you're all welcome here. They have offered 5 times, Palestine has been offered a separate state of its own. And Israel agreed to 98% of what they wanted. But they refused it. They want Israel gone. So now their ruling body is Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. And in Hamas's own charter, their written founding charter, you can go look it up, is a point that states that Hamas stands for the annihilation of Israel and all Jews in Israel and all Jews the worldwide. Now, Israel has been attacked many times by Hamas. Gaza. Their partners in crime, you will, Hezbollah, Iran, state-sponsored terrorism. And Israel has finally, this last time, and something you never hear from all these young college kids protesting over the last several weeks at the big universities, they don't know what they're protesting. They don't know the history of this conflict over there. They don't know the history of Israel. This is something where, when I talk about this, Israel was founded in 1948 to 49, right in there. And I started studying Israel in the mid-70s. And in my high school days and into my college days, and I've studied Middle East politics and Middle Eastern history and Israeli history for the last 45 years. When I started studying Israel, they were only 30 years old as a country. Now they're 75 years old as a country, almost 80. So I've spent some time researching this. And Israel was attacked by Hamas terrorists on October 7th. We all know this. And you never hear this being talked about at these protests. You never hear, as an aside, you never hear these protests talking about how countries, their state-sponsored Iran sponsors the terrorist group Hamas, which is the leadership group for Gaza. You never hear them talking about the suppression of women. I'd like all those women that are protesting on campuses that are pro-Hamas, death to Israel, death to the United States. I would like to see all of those people, those women especially, protesting. Why don't you go and try this protest over in Tehran, the state that sponsors Hamas? And I see Michael Lionheart. I see you over in the waiting in the wings. We don't take calls until after the radio show, and we're on the after show after the 10 o'clock hour Midwest, 11 o'clock hour out east. So we'll take calls in the captain's cabin, the after show, if you want to stick around for that. So go say hello in the chat room. If you're just popping in to get online with us, why don't you go talk to everybody over in the chat room and let them vet you a little bit. I don't recall seeing you here before. There you are. Hello, Michael. Maybe I've seen you in here before. I don't know. Introduce yourself over there, and let's talk about the show for about another half an hour before we start taking calls. So Israel is not committing genocide. Hamas attacked Israel. They killed over 1,200 people on October 7th, between kids attending a music concert and families sleeping in their beds. They killed mothers, fathers, children, small babies, 1,200 of them. What do you think the United States reaction would be if, this is a hypothetical, Canadian, so don't go apeshit over it. What if a bunch of Canadians came over and started killing Americans. I mean, officially Canadian government-sponsored people. Do you think across that border that the United States would do something? Or would we negotiate a ceasefire? Do you realize that the ceasefire has been called for since day one of Israel's attack on Gaza? And Israel has extended to all the inhabitants of Gaza, cross the border, come over to us. Find safety here in Israel because we are going to bomb the shit out of Hamas. Hamas, who hides behind Palestinians, who hides behind and uses as human shields Gazans. They still have captives. The Geneva Convention and all conventions of war that all civilized countries have agreed to say you cannot take prisoners of war to try to win what you want to win. As bargaining chips. I don't know what it's called in the conventions of war. But this is exactly what Hamas has done. Why? They're terrorists. This is what terrorists do. They kill people in their sleep. They take hostages. And they keep saying to Israel, well, we'll do this and this. We'll agree to that. We'll let the hostages go if you do this and agree to whatever we want. Israel's telling them, you know what? We're not talking with you. You will return the hostages, all of them. Then we can see if we can talk afterwards. In the meantime, we are going to eradicate you. This is what Israel is doing. And they are offering to Palestinians the right to come over to Israel, come where it's safe, because we're going to keep bombing until we eradicate Hamas. And Hamas still has prisoners. And Israel is still continuing doing what they're doing. And they're going to. So I was looking some information up today, and I came across the Anti-Defamation League, or Anti-Defamation International. And they contend that Israel is not committing genocide in Gaza. In the months since Hamas's October 7th attacks, there's been a full-force campaign to frame Israel's counteroffensive in Gaza as a genocide. There's been an attempt to redefine the word genocide. It's not just an accusation that's pushed by the extreme left. This is a campaign endorsed by foreign governments, international organizations, the media, and even elected U.S. officials. But why? Why are these people pushing this? It's not simply that Israel's actions in Gaza failed to meet the legal standards of genocide, but that other wars on a single population, Bashar al-Assad's on Syrian Sunnis, the Chinese Communist Party's on Muslim, I don't even know how to pronounce it, the Uyghurs, the Uyghurs. I think it's Uyghurs. They stir no similar outrage from these countries and these people. There's a name for that double standard, and that's called anti-Semitism. Genocide has a definition in law, folks, in international law. For Israel's actions to meet the legal criteria of genocide, there must be evidence of more than just a high casualty count or the leveling of property. Per the United Nations, genocide requires an intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. By the way, Hamas is none of those. Hamas is a terrorist group. I'm going to repeat that. This is in quotes now, quote unquote. Genocide, as defined by the United Nations, requires an, quote, intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, end quote. As statements by Israeli officials have made clear, their intentions in Gaza are limited to eliminating Hamas's operational capacity and bringing home the hostages. Hamas, however, has openly declared its intent to wipe out Israel and the Jewish state. Again, just read their charter. I've got a link here. Let's see if I can copy this link and put it in the chat room. I'm going to copy this link address. Let's see if this actually is where you need to go. Yes, okay. You can take a look at this link, and you're going to find that. It's at theatlantic.com. So you can find that their charter in there. And when I contend that Hamas has in its charter the annihilation of Jews the worldwide, there it is. You can find it in their own words. So, I'm sorry, this one isn't the Anti-Defamation League that I'm pulling this information from. This is another news source. So, any proper debate about genocide first requires understanding the casualties in Gaza, because whom Israel targets and how determines the legitimacy of the war effort. The only source of data on casualty figures has been the Hamas-controlled Gaza Ministry of Health, which claims that 70% of the more than 30,000 people who've died are women and children, despite mounting evidence that the health ministry's numbers are statistically impossible. They continue to be legitimized by the U.S. government, widely distributed by mainstream media. They've been used to discredit the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, their own statistics on eliminating Hamas combatants. West Point's John Spencer, the premier expert on urban warfare, has repeatedly stated that the precautions Israel has taken to prevent civilian harm throughout this war, including during last month's raid of Al-Shifa Hospital, in which the IDF killed or captured hundreds of Hamas fighters, not only surpasses that of any military in history, including our own, but goes above and beyond what is required by international law. So, has Israel erred in service of its aims? Sure, absolutely. The recent accidental killing of 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers is a tragedy. And those who played a role have rightly been held accountable, but such is the reality of all war. Miscalculations are made. The wrong people get killed. Friendly fire happens. And that's especially true in a war against an enemy that strategically embeds itself within civilian sites for the express purpose of maximizing death tolls among its own people. Yet that hasn't stopped widespread accusations against Israel of systematically targeting civilians. Why do those accusations still exist? And while some may be ignorant of the relevant statutes, the Geneva Conventions, and other elements of international humanitarian law are clear, the standard for the death of civilians is the word willful death of civilians. No credible source has presented evidence of Israel's willful targeting of Palestinian civilians. None. These distinctions matter for putting genocide charges into the context of anti-Semitism. The word genocide was coined for the specific purpose of naming the systematic, state-sponsored persecution of the Jewish people during the Holocaust. That's where the word originated. Recognition of the special nature of Jewish suffering has given way to frequent accusations that Jews seek to benefit from an exclusive claim on victimhood, and that they have weaponized the Holocaust as a way to insulate Israel from all criticism and moral obligation, and have turned the Nazi genocide into a get-out-of-jail-free card. And this manipulation of the Holocaust and the concept of genocide is textbook anti-Semitism, according to the widely adopted International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition. And that's being used by, among others, deniers of the Holocaust. And that only deepens the irony. So the world must not ignore the sadistic pleasure taken by those charging Israel with genocide. It's an attempt to neuter Jewish trauma in order to wage political war against Israel by positing a moral equivalency between what was done to the Jews then and what the Jewish state is doing now in its defensive war against Hamas. And the atrocities of the Holocaust are delegitimized, and Jews can no longer reap the supposed illicit advantages granted by their history. And indeed, the false charges of genocide is what has allowed critics to continue excusing Hamas's terrorism as a justifiable act of resistance, desecrating Jewish storefronts with swastikas and slurs, or holding signs saying Hitler would be proud, with total impunity. During the Rwandan genocide in the 1990s, do you remember that? At least 60% of Rwandan Tutsis were murdered. 60%. In the 1970s, some 99% of Cambodian Vietnam citizens were murdered by the Khmer Rouge. More than 2/3 of Jews in Europe were murdered by the Nazis. Although the number of Arabs resident in British Mandatory Palestine in 1948, the year the State of Israel is created, is the subject of heated debate, even Palestinian sources admit that the Palestinian global population has increased ninefold since 1948. Hamas began this war against Israel with the brutal and deliberate targeting of innocent Israeli civilians. What's resulted in Gaza today is a terrible toll on both the Jewish people and the Palestinians alike. This tragedy is, however, demonstrably, legally, and morally not genocide. To suggest that it is constitutes another crime of anti-Semitism against the Jewish people. And in this heightened rhetoric of the present day, Israel is sometimes accused of committing acts of genocide against the Palestinians. It continues on. The college protests. You know who's leading those protests? Not mindless students. They're the followers. They are Hamas-sponsored terrorists. And you've got people in our own government, our legislators, some of them. I think of Omar, who is anti-Semitic as they come. Yet she's a member of the House of Representatives in our country, elected by Islamic communities. So Israel is accused of committing acts of genocide against the Palestinians, and genocide is a legal term, and it's in no way do Israeli policies and actions meet this legal threshold. Rather, the sensationalist use of the term genocide, sensationalist, I say, use of the term genocide in relation to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not only inaccurate and misleading, but it serves to demonize the state of Israel and to diminish recognized acts of genocide that are actually out there. The term genocide was first introduced by Polish Jewish lawyer Raphael Lemkin in 1944, with the construct of genos, meaning race or tribe, and side, meaning killing. So Lemkin coined the term in response to the Holocaust, but also in reference to earlier events, including the Armenian genocide. So the United Nations General Assembly recognized genocide as a crime under international law in 1946. And it was codified in the Convention of the Prevention and Punishment of Crime of Genocide in 1948. And the definition of genocide under this current convention is this. Here it is. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. As such, A, killing members of the group. B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. E, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. So while one may oppose and even condemn particular Israeli policies or actions with regard to Palestinians or Israel's Arab citizens, the fact remains that in no way has Israel engaged in any action with the intent to exterminate in whole or in part the Palestinian people. Period. Accusing Israel of genocide has the collateral effect diminishing real acts of genocide. That's what you're hearing on our college and university campuses today. They're starting to get some kickback, by the way, which is good, finally. So, such as those that occurred in the Holocaust against Armenians and in Rwanda. So, it's deeply concerning that Israel is often the only country in the world accused by activist groups of contemporaneously engaging in genocide. Not only is this as false as a matter of both law and fact, but it also applies a singularly demonizing double standard to Israel. And claiming, as some do, that there are many types of genocide, and Israel is, for example, committing cultural genocide, is equally problematic. Regardless of how the term is applied, it is clearly heard and impacts a large audience who hear it as the legal term intended to convey the most awful of human crimes: mass murder and population expulsion. A change that is misapplied to Israel, misapplied to Israel in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. So there are 5 things I want you to look at when it comes to determining genocide and is Israel committing genocide. Let's see. 5 reasons why events in Gaza are not genocidal on the part of Israel. As all these images and all these accounts of human suffering in Gaza by Palestinians and from southern Israel dominate the headlines and social media, anger continues to grow. Each civilian death is a tragedy, and when those tragedies occur, it calls for holding those who are responsible accountable. Israel's military operation to defend itself after Hamas's October 7th attacks and atrocities has been falsely described as genocide, as we have established over and over again in this show tonight. They're saying it's genocide against the Palestinians. And such accusations of genocide pervade the scholarly discourse, the social media, the vitriol of anti-Israel protesters, and even a spurious accusation filed by South Africa in the International Court of Justice. Way to go, South Africa. So few claims are more offensive and blatantly wrong. The modern-day Jewish state was created after the Nazis committed the genocide known as the Holocaust, murdering 6 million Jews who had nowhere to go and no place to call home because there was no Israel. Of course, the implied hypocrisy that the survivors of genocide are now committing one of their own genocides makes for a really powerful talking point in the war of words surrounding the conflict between Israel and Gaza. But it is simply and blatantly untrue, as we've already established. Even worse, charging Israel with genocide gives a free pass to the Hamas terrorists who are deliberately engineering the immense harm that innocent Palestinians are experiencing today. It legitimizes Hamas's actions. Steph says you can protest, but when you stop people to going to work or school or roadways and making them feel threatened, that's not okay. That's how they took some people. It's weird to hear anyone be hardline either side, says Anonymous. I don't think it's weird at all. If I'm understanding you, Anonymous, I don't know who you are because you're anonymous, but that's not weird at all to hear anybody being hardline. I'm hardline on this, anti-Hamas. I'm hardline pro-Israel. I am hardline anti-Semitism, unless I misunderstood you. And so I think there is a place to be hardline about something here. So let's continue on with these 5 reasons now. These are the 5 reasons I have why the use of the term genocide to describe Israel's self-defense campaign is inaccurate, misleading, and ultimately dangerous. Number 1, genocide refers to the physical destruction of an entire group in whole or in part that has been targeted on the basis of its identity. This is not Israel's objective in Gaza. What you need to know about the latest International Court of Injustice action, the case against Israel, you can find online. I'm not going to get into that. I've got a note here. I'm not going to go there. The United Nations General Assembly recognized genocide as a crime. We've already gone through the definitions of it. Israel's war is not against Gazans or Palestinians, it's against Hamas. Israel is not seeking to destroy the Palestinian people or the Palestinian population of Gaza, which is what would need to happen in order to correctly apply the term genocide. Israel's leaders have repeatedly asserted that their campaign in Gaza is solely against the terrorist organization Hamas. In fact, this type of military campaign is the exact opposite of reflecting an attempt to eliminate the Palestinian population. And you can redefine the word all you want. It's not genocide. Number 2, Israel is responding to a genocidal attack by Hamas. Israel's objective in Hamas has been to destroy Hamas. In Gaza, has been to destroy Hamas, a terrorist organization that carried out an unprecedented and brutal massacre against Israeli people on October 7th. Israel is fully justified in using military force to respond to Hamas, and as much power as they need to. Number 3, Israel's actions reflect its desire to spare Palestinian civilians from harm, not to deliberately harm them. The humane practices of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, disprove claims of genocidal intent as Israeli military sends Arabic language warnings to Gazans prior to its airstrikes on terrorist infrastructure and legitimate military targets in the coastal enclave. Humanitarian corridors have been set up. In fact, Israel called for the temporary evacuation of the local population to the northern part of the Gaza Strip and delayed its ground operation in Gaza for weeks to allow civilians time to heed Israel's warnings and head north. If you didn't know that, that's the fact. I remember when it was happening. And they said the residents of the northern Gaza will be able to return to the area when the conditions permit. Now, far from reflecting on genocidal intent, Israel's temporary relocation of Palestinian civilians out of northern Gaza reflects an intention to ensure that they are out of harm's way. Genocidal maniacs don't do that. And since October 17th, Israel has also allowed more and more humanitarian aid deliveries for Palestinians. But you know what? It's controlled by the Hamas health ministry. And so money and aid that we send over there to Palestine, I guarantee you is not making it to humanitarian aid. We got some really stupid people in government here. Number 4, Hamas's actions are designed to cause harm to Palestinian civilians and blame Israel. Israel has a right to defend within its boundaries of international conventions and law. From the thousands of Hamas missiles that have been fired on Israeli towns and cities. They're fired from civilian neighborhoods in the Gaza Strip, from inside, next to, and underneath nominally civilian areas in Gaza like residential buildings, schools, mosques, and hospitals. Hamas uses these places to launch its attacks because then they can blame Israel for bombing a hospital or a legitimately non-military target. Hamas puts civilians in harm's way. Israel goes to great lengths to avoid harming civilians as its target. Hamas puts them right in the way. They're aimed at protecting its leaders, its weapons, its property, Hamas's actions, but also vying for leverage in the public opinion war by inflating the number of civilian deaths. And then number 5, and we got to get out of here for the radio audience, the facts of the genocide charge just don't add up. We covered some of that. Those that claim that Israel's committing genocide not only misunderstand the legal definition of genocide and what the laws of war permit, they also base the charge on unsubstantiated claim. The number of innocents versus terrorists that have died, the circumstances in which numerous innocents have been killed in Gaza, and the nature of the military objective. And guys, I got to end for the radio audience. We'll pick this up in the after show. All of you watching right now on radio, come and join us on the YouTube channel for the after show. Until then, live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid Radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here. Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave. Well, welcome to the Captain's Cabin, everyone. Welcome to the show. If we want to get in character for the Captain's Cabin. So, welcome. I'm glad you were here tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Enjoy is a tough word to use when you're talking about subject matter like this, but that you, by enjoy, replace that with the meaning of, I hope you got something out of this. You gleaned something that's useful as you run into these things out there. I saw Sean Stroik, you said something about my mic. Was my mic doing something funny? I'm not sure. So I see your comment down there. You said, Mike! So I'm looking at some of your comments here, and I'm glad that you've got these comments. It tells me you're just right along with what we're talking about. This is an important topic, I believe, for all of us to be educated on. If you're going to talk about Israel and going to talk about Palestinians and going to talk about all the harm being done to Palestinians, you should place that on the right people. It's not Israel. Israel is leading the attack, yes, but Israel is acting lawfully to defend their borders. And they are wiping out Hamas. It's a war against Hamas, not against civilians. And if you think for a minute that there is genocide being committed by Israel, I'm going to send you back home to do your research before you talk about it. Do not open your mouth about it again until you know what the hell you're talking about. It's that simple. Terry Pitts is here. Robert Pitts. Terry, good to see you, brother. Afternoon, he says. I don't know what time you were in here. Oh, yeah, I do. 9:54, just before the end of the show. Good to see you, Terry. If you're still here. So what about the Jews calling it a genocide? Says Johan. What about their voice? Well, they're wrong. It's that simple. There are Jews that are going. It's like, look at the Catholic Church. Find out the Catholic Church has certain things it believes, and certain things it does, and then you've got some Catholics who say, well, I don't believe that. I'm going to go against the teachings of the church. Are they still Catholic or whatever? So, yeah, it's not a perfect example, but yeah, you're going to have Jews. There are Jews that say Jews against what's going on in Palestine, or Jews for genocide, or whatever it is, for believing in genocide. Johan, they are wrong. It's that simple. Give me their arguments for why they are calling it genocide. And I'll gladly debate those arguments right here. Tell me, Johan, because you brought it up, if you're still here, you say, what about the Jews calling it a genocide? What is their information? What facts are they using to call it genocide? Because I have just, for the last hour, presented all the reasons why you cannot call it a genocide. Why it cannot even be called genocide. To call it a genocide is anti-Semitic all by itself because of the implications of that. People need to stop listening to Hamas, says JP. Stop listening to their statements about the bodies being dug up at the hospital. Those bodies were buried by Hamas and Palestinians way back. And they even stated that they were. Yep. Exactly. Hamas uses some of the innocents as shield. They use as many as they can. They use whoever they need to. Who funded and planned October 7th? Follow the money. It was Iran sponsoring terrorism in the Middle East against Israel. Hamas is sponsored by Tehran. So they are a terrorist group. That's where you follow the money to. You follow it to Iran. Moles, says Johan. Which moles are you talking about? So. I'm reading comments. That's why I'm quiet. Just reading some comments. Just think what they would do if they did hear what they did on October 7th in Israel. Yeah. Do you think that maybe Biden would do nothing? He's a weak, feckless president. He might say, don't. Don't. So I hope that answered your question, Johan. Who funded and planned October 7th? If you follow the money, it's Iran. Let's see. I'm going backwards in the comments here as I scroll backwards. Well, I could go all the way back to the beginning and then just scroll forward. How about that? Let's try that. Okay, I'm way back at the beginning. Joseph, we talked to Joseph about books at the beginning. Michelle Canham-Free is here. Was here at least. We were talking about TikTok a little bit. Yeah, Biden is still using TikTok. You're right, Chad Sanders. Because it works for him to spread his stuff right now. He wants to stop it. So you can't get another message out. I'm trying to see what... Okay, she's messaging me. Okay, we got to take Flynn to the doctor tomorrow. That's all. He's got to get a note for school. So let's see. And she's messaging me that during the show. All right, she's still messaging me. Let's see. Sorry, folks. So, what do y'all think about what we talked about here tonight? What's on your minds? I see some of the comments, and I'm starting to scroll through some of them. And I'm just scrolling through to see what you all said. I'm sure they're waiting. Then they will pounce on Rumble and Truth Social. Yep, Steph, we saw that earlier. He wants to take our firearms. Oh, you're talking about RFK Jr. Rapid Dog Kennedy can't speak correctly. About what? Rapid Dog, if you're still here. Not sure what you mean. What you're referring to there. Shouldn't have to vote third party. We need to take back the party. They don't own it. That's right, Randall Flagg. Shouldn't have to vote third party. You can. I mean, we have the right to do that, but we need to fall back on convention and do this the right way. Mechanics says the whole situation is one big mess. That's the truth. I still think Biden, says Steph, crime family has their filthy hands into something in Israel. Like I say, the Ben Gurion Canal. Well, I don't know. Tell you the truth, I don't know. They got their fingers into some other things that are a problem already. 70% of the arrests are not affiliated with the schools, said Randall Flagg. Of the arrests of protesters. That's right. 70% of those people are not affiliated with any of the schools where the protests are going on, but they're there. Hey, there's Michael Lionheart again. I still see you out in the wings. Michael, I can't remember if I've had you on the show before. You'd think I'd remember your name, a name like Lionheart, and it's vague. It's back there. Did we have you on the show before? What are you all about? I see you're waiting in the wings out there. Tell us a little bit more in the chat room. And JP, what do you got to say tonight? What do you got to say for yourself? So someone here took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. What bait, Rapid Dog? I don't know what you're referring to. That was at 9:30. You said that. If you're still here, someone here took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Maybe Steph couldn't either. She says, I'm confused. Mechanics says Canada is only interested in attacking their own citizens and also funds Hamas. Yeah, truth. It's complicated for show. Faux show, says Anonymous. When you're fighting a larger and more sophisticated military, you have to resort to urgently tactic. Sorry, I'm not reading that right because it's too small. I got to blow it up. Jason.
Hey, doing all right. How you doing?
I'm good. What's on your mind, brother? What's going on?
Well, excuse me. This has been a sticky wicket on multiple fronts.
Yes,
since the whole thing started.
Yes.
I think some things that I people would do very well to kind of understand before they start getting involved in some of the rhetoric that we hear, things like that. One is to make themselves informationally intimate with the ideology of extremist organizations like Hamas. Really dig into the information that's in their own charter. There have been some tweaks here and there that were made that kind of
they've tried to soften.
It's like, oh well, we have the elimination of this way up here. Let's soften the language a little bit and stick it down here where people won't notice it as much, right?
Right.
Smoke and mirrors kind of thing. But the intent is still there and still obvious. And when you have zealots,
mm-hmm.
It gets very dangerous.
Indeed,
because you're not dealing with normal combatants. Yeah. You're not dealing with a normal combatant command. You're not dealing with a normal governmental structure that controls that combatant command. And the the leadership over that command, you're not looking at anything like that. There's a different mentality. There's a different thought process, outlook on life, and viewpoints on things that conventional forces do not have. And typically speaking, the nations that raise conventional forces don't have. When you have extremist organizations, they are all martyrs. Everyone is a martyr. Whether it's a combatant or it's a civilian, they're all martyrs. And because they're all martyrs, death is cheap.
Right.
And that's not even necessarily saying that they hold death cheap, because they see it's martyrs for the cause. That's there is reverence to that. So it's not cheap in so much to them as in it's whatever. So much chaff separated from the wheat, as it is. It is easy for them to do. It is easy for them to accept. And they are all too happy to accept it and use it. There is no, if there is restraint that is shown, it is restraints to that is done as a means to achieve an end. It is not because, oh, we feel for these people. Think of the children. It insert Sarah McLachlan and the Starving Puppies music in the background. It is not that. They will use it for their own political gain. They will use it for their own societal gain. Everything that they can, yes. They'll squeeze whatever they can out of it. And it's an interesting place to be stuck in, on the side of a conventional force fighting an extremist jihadist force, especially if you're a military force that has any sort of ethical boundaries established within the framework of your conduct, of how you execute your conduct, of what you stand on, and things like that. Because you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And you have to be very, very methodical and very careful about how you do things, because they will use whatever advantage that they can. There is no. If you look at U.S. forces and I'll say by extension our allies in the previous conflicts that we've been involved in, there is a necessity to maintain a moral high ground. And saying a moral high ground, it comes close to potentially running afoul of, we are the good guys and we are so much better than you and this, that, and the other thing. But it's not about, an egotistical kind of thing. It's about, we have certain values, we have specific values and ideologies that we adhere to. And the minute that we separate from those, we undermine everything that we stand for. And then you're going up against a force that does things in a manner that provokes that. It tests it. It tries it at every opportunity. And then it finds any way it can to make you look like you don't have, that you haven't been conducting ethical warfare. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who are like, ethical warfare? What? It's all murder. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. And you look at Israel and the casualty, the CIVCAS rate, as a civilian casualty, CIVCAS, right? If you look at the CIVCAS rates between them beginning operations after October 7th to today, and you compare it to us in Iraq or in Afghanistan,
Mm-hmm.
the Israelis, the IDF, they're blowing us out of the water
Sure.
in terms of showing and exercising restraint
Yes,
and
they are.
in actions that would increase the CivCas rate exponentially. They're not doing genocide.
No,
They are
the
not.
points that we made during the program.
Exactly.
There's a whole list of things that you can go through that shows that they are not doing
Exactly.
the things that define their actions.
And
as
here's
genocide.
one of the other pieces to it, right? You know, because I've kind of talked the good guy.
By the way, welcome, Professor,
Hey, Prof.
and welcome, Michael.
Good
Michael, you're on over there. You're just muted right now.
I've kind of talked the good guy side of it, if you will,
Yeah.
for the most part. There,
I was wondering when this was going to finish because there was a lot of silly philosophical shit going on there, which I think was relevant for the most part, but it sounded like a bunch of excuses based on
excuses.
What are you
the
referring to exactly?
The whole premise of what Jason was just going through. You know, there's kill rates, there's the ethical side of war, and then is death really something, this or that? And I think that's all fine and dandy, but that's basically a bunch of excuses for an entirely different event that's going on. This is above Israel and Hamas. What you guys are bantering about is the symptoms, the circumstantial shit that's happening as a result of the bigger.
I'm talking about the physical manifestation that everybody's experiencing and seeing. There's no doubt there's more going on behind the curtain, but
all of these things that you guys are talking about, though, are just a part of the theater. They're part of the play. These are the things that are being amplified in the narrative in order to guide people's thinking in that direction. That's my point. So you can talk about what's happened in Afghanistan, Iraq, Germany, Japan. You can go back thousands of years with all of the same questions and excuses for.
It starts with somebody throwing a sandal and then somebody throwing a rock back at the guy who threw the sandal.
Exactly.
Then he picks up the rock and throws. This has been going on for a long time. What Hamas is doing right now is the same thing they've been doing all the way along.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt of that. And that's just like the Babylonians, the Huns, all of the different. When you talk about your point, I think, if I'm getting this correct, was about the word genocide and its use and its abuse of that term. And you correctly pulled out at least the United Nations definition thereof. Mm-hmm. But it was around long before the United Nations became the United Nations, right? And we have examples of this. We have examples of this throughout history. Mm-hmm. There's been this constant wiping out of one group of people over another.
The thing in all of it, though, today by this point, Professor, is the fact that we, as the human race, as civilization, mm-hmm. all right, we trip up a lot. But we try to continually work towards that not being the norm.
Yeah, how's that working out so far?
Well, you know what? You can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs. And if you want to sit there and say, well, how's that working out for you, big guy? So far, whatever. Like, man, get out of the way. Get out of the way, because unfortunately, there's a whole lot of things that are going to have to happen from time to time that nobody likes to do. And take it from a guy who's been there.
The needs of the many outweigh the few or the one, right?
Sometimes you got to get dirty. Sometimes you got to get dirty. You don't like it, but you got to do it. And I can tell you from a soldier's perspective, no good soldier wants to actually go to war.
Mm-hmm.
They pray every day that they don't have to. There is the testosteronally fueled shit talking that happens to boost one another up, to keep your mind in the game, to keep you from falling apart, to keep you focused, to keep your head on a swivel because you're not thinking of everything else going on back home that you have no control over, whatever, those kinds of things. But underneath it all, no good soldier wants to go to war. But
they've
we're
made the
willing
decision.
to.
They're made the decision to be ready and able if indeed that need arises.
Right. And
that's
It's a necessity, sad to say.
At this point, it's a necessity. It's sad to say it. And until somebody, whoever way out there in your great revelation out there, who comes up with the replicating devices, the replicators.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we see in Star Trek. Yeah. No. I'm talking replicators. Not let me get a school or something.
That's another. That's
Earl Grey, hot.
Yes.
And until you have that, and you have all of the matter antimatter conversion stuff powering whatever, and we no longer have a need for fossil fuels or resources that are grown places that we can all just pull it out of our butts out of midair. All right, and we don't have any sort of resource demands pulling at everything. Until we reach that point, unfortunately, this is the kind of stuff that we're going to have to deal with. We can't reach the utopia of the United Federation of Planets.
The only point, the main point that I was making was that the conversation around the events, around these symptoms of the inability of humans to figure out how to get along together and stop trying to kill each other. And it's always about resources. It's always about something, whether somebody has something that we want, whether it's the land or they've got some artifacts or they've got whatever the hell it is.
But that's the problem. That's the thing that I'm trying to get at when you're talking about dealing with an extremist organization. It's not about resources. It's not about land. It is about the intangible.
Well,
it is about the intangible, and it's about things like control. It's about things like pushing their own worldview and shaping and molding the world in their view. Yeah. All right. Go ask the people of Afghanistan how that's working with the Taliban, because last time I checked, girls haven't been allowed to school since we pulled out. And
hey, just a second here. I just got to say to Fish here. Yeah, let Michael Leinhardt speak. I don't know if that's your tone, but if that's the tone you're going to take, no. So, how about that?
We are a raucous group and don't have any trouble speaking our minds with forked tongues. But Jason, the only point that I'm making is that same shit's been going on since the history that we have. Okay?
Yeah,
it has.
That's the latest massification of people not being able to get along. And if you look at, and Scotty's gone over this with the history of the region, not only has there never been a Palestinian people, there has not been a Palestinian place. And as far back as the Hebrews go, is at least twice as far as any Palestinian thing can be identified. But that's not the point. The point is that is just an issue that's a bunch of people have been fighting over the same sand and dirt for millennia, and they can't get along. It doesn't matter if it's the Arabs, if it's the Hebrews, if it's the any of the Islamic factions.
You notice
they've been fighting over this shit for.
You notice there's certain things going on here lately in recent time that start to veer a little bit away from that. All right. Jordan, first of all, the entire state of Israel and all of the area of Palestine and everything that's under debate was predominantly carved out of Jordan. Jordan carved it off of their western portion there and was like, take it.
Yeah, how many times does that happen? Yeah,
right?
How many times does that happen?
What, that Jordan carved out a section of its country?
No, that land has been divvied up by whoever the hell is fighting with one another over there. There's
Right.
been more configurations of borders and countries. And
Same things
cultures.
happen in
There have,
England
there
and
have, but
Ireland
there's
and
other
Wales.
things too, though.
and
You look at the Abraham
Germany and
Accords.
Listen,
France.
guys, we
You look
need
at the
to
fact
start
that
putting
civilization
America
began.
first.
Look at the Abraham
America
Accords.
first. Start
Say
with
Go ahead, Michael.
Nicolas
Michael,
Fuentes.
Michael,
welcome to
let's
the
hear,
show.
let's hear what you have to
Fuentes.
say, Michael. Let's start from the beginning. Let's hear it.
Sorry, we were talking. I didn't know you were even talking over there. So start again, Michael.
Sorry,
You have
no,
the
no. I'm
floor.
just saying we need to start putting America first.
I agree.
We need to start putting America first. That's the only way. That's the only way this country is going to get back to where we belong, back to the golden ages.
You know,
That's
there's
what we
there's
need.
a certain logic to that.
Yes.
There's a certain logic to that, Michael, and I understand that. But here's the problem. Herein lies the problem. After World War II, okay, and please apologize. I apologize. Please forgive me for my outdoor light here keeps turning on and off.
We'll just follow your cigarette butt light.
Yeah, there we go. After World War II, okay, we got put into the position. We were the only country that was able to do the things that needed to be done and help facilitate the things that needed to be done to bring the kinds of stability that we saw through all of those regions. And we have right, wrong, and different in certain areas. Okay, I'm not going to say that some of them were the smartest moves. All right, right, wrong, or indifferent. We have gotten interwoven into so many things that if we pulled back completely and we took an isolationist stance, the problems that would arise from that are manifold. I don't think you begin to understand the level of conflicts that could erupt in places that were no longer places that have not been places of conflict or been places of low conflict, the power shifts that you would see. If we were to do something where it was completely America first and go in some sort of isolationist, we're only focusing on us kind of thing, there are second, third, and fourth order and even fifth order effects that we have to consider. And we have to be very careful about how we do that.
And I understand. And that's I agree with this. The whole concept of what Michael brought up as a basic ideology for the United States is we have to be America first. We have to worry about, concern ourselves with our own interests, with the interests of our people, with the interests of, like, we ask the question all the time, how can we send 40 billion over there to that blank country when we have starving veterans here?
Right.
Well, the thing is, both of those should be able to be issues that are dealt with in one way or another simultaneously, or not consecutively, simultaneously at the same time.
So I have a question. I have a question for the panelists. Why?
Hang on 1 second.
Just said.
Hang on 1 second, Prof.
Okay.
But I think we have to deal with America first, and we have to put Americans first. That has to be our policy. But as Jason also stated, there is so much in the world, and then you pick up right from this, Professor. There's so much in the world that America is involved with, so many structures out there that keep infrastructure from collapsing. And I'm talking ideological national infrastructure out there from collapsing the worldwide because of America's presence, and our interests, and things that bolster our own country at the same time. That I think Jason's right. You pull the plug on any of that, you go total isolationist, that you're going to have an imploding world. So, Professor.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that to a certain extent, but I also think that is not as likely as it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago.
And
that is
I would say that your calculations are probably a bit wrong, because here's the other thing.
I'm not done yet. Yeah, I'm not. I'm filibustering. There's none of that going on here.
Okay.
I'm too old and long in the tooth for that shit. So,
Professor says, I'm not done making my point yet.
I need time to filibuster, damn it.
I've known you for too long, Jason. So my point is this, is that all of this talk and all of the hyperbole around all of these conflicts that are going on around the world. And they're primarily in the Middle East and over in Asia with Russia and Ukraine. And there's, Poland's getting a little feisty and Hungary's kind of chirping a little bit. Sweden has already joined NATO. There's all this posturing going on.
Yep.
And that has never happened in at least what we, thanks, Seth. Yeah.
She's got you pegged.
I'm gonna make it short because I would like to hear Michael's and everybody's thought on this because I have a question.
Me too.
Yeah.
So my point is that all this stuff is a bunch of fodder. It's a bunch of shit, but that we've never seen two things. One, the amount, and two, the awareness of it. Because everything's connected now. All of a sudden, we know about everybody's pissant shit that they're doing around the world.
That's true.
And we're all we're all watching it, and we're trying to, assess it and try to process it. What do you think? And there's more. Every time I go in deep into some rabbit hole that's got a cavern in it, I find all kinds of shit in there. And you look around and you go, well, this puts a totally different perspective on what was above the hole.
Right.
Yeah.
And the hole is what we are seeing right now. This is a manifestation of a bunch of shit that is much deeper and much more. They're just using this because they know it works. They being whoever you want to categorize and put into the category of they. And Scotty, for your point,
Yes.
Information, you remember in when we were doing all of our biblical scholarly dives and so forth.
Yes.
Do you remember what what Lucifer, what they incorrectly named as Lucifer, but the angels, the bad, the demons, and all those people?
Yeah.
Do you remember what they referred to themselves as?
What they referred to themselves as?
They called themselves they, them, and us.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Right?
Yes.
How does that correlate to today? Where is this they, them, and us, and all of this identity shit?
We're all interested in personal pronouns,
right? So these guys started that shit a long time ago, apparently. But drawing the comparison to our current line of bullshit.
Lucifer, what are your pronouns?
This is all a bunch of stuff that's above the hole that is there for our entertainment, edutainment. Okay. And it's designed to stir the kind of conversations that we're having.
Are you suggesting that the whole conflict in Israel and with Hamas is staged for our entertainment to draw our attention away from something? I think this is just human history, though.
Yes, that's exactly what I think.
Okay.
So even if, regardless of whether what I think makes any sense or even anywhere, well, remember, what did I just say?
Say it.
Well, Cat Williams will
and
tell you that it's
they, them, and us.
the Illuminati.
And they are legion, as I think it was Steph just said.
Well, are you? Oh, no, that was Lonely Mountain Band. They are legion, for they are many. So are you talking about, are you now moving this whole conflict into the spiritual realm? It's the spiritual realm of the demonic, you're saying? That it is these...
I'm not saying that it is of that. Although I would surmise and posit that indeed those kinds of
there's a force behind it.
Those kinds of forces, if they exist, they would definitely be behind something like this. Right?
I'm not saying that they are, but if they existed, they would be.
Well, don't you think? I mean, doesn't that make sense?
Sure. Well,
but
sure.
If they're not, and it's really just a bunch of our own bullshit that we have, legions of decades and centuries and millennia of. This is the standard human model.
Now, I would step right up there with you right away and say, yeah, I believe there is something spiritual in nature. We call it spiritual. Everybody's got to get out of their head a picture of the Bible, a picture of spirituality from that respect. Think of the realms, the dimensional realms that are different than the physical realm. I think that there are definitely spiritual realms that have control or say or interplay with what's going on in the world today. Powers that be. As you and I, Prof, both of us went to very similar kinds of seminaries when we were mere kids. We went to these schools and they taught us the principalities and principles of the power of the air. It's Satan and his minions and so on. And I only say it that way because I'm not making light of that precisely. I'm saying
yes, you are, and it's beautiful.
We call it in those circles.
And I'm enjoying it because I would.
But I'm not a disbeliever in it. I'm not making fun of it because I disbelieve. I'm making fun because it's like, well, it must be Satan, But that's not how we're putting this. I'm thinking, are you saying then that it is the powers of the air that are here, that are behind everything that's happening with human history and going on in the world today?
I would phrase it slightly differently, but mostly yes.
Okay.
And I would say that it's the powers in the air
that
are of the air, which the air is of space.
Okay.
And space is required for everything, the reality that we experience to be in.
I'm glad you tried
is it not so necessarily
all along. Pretty nice place you found for us. I think we could settle down here. Make it a place to call home.
What is going on?
I'm hearing you.
Sorry, Mike. I accidentally hit something with the TV.
That's okay. I've done that.
So clearly Jason is tapping out. He doesn't have anything to counter my proposition.
I think he's waiting for you to lay the whole.
I think he's just wimping it. He's pulling a total.
I'm not just wimping it. I'll be completely honest. I'll be completely honest.
You think I'm full of shit?
I neither confirm nor deny that. I still love you.
By the way, Michael, if you're still out there, I lost you somewhere along the way. Unless I accidentally made you exit. I don't think I did.
And
I don't see you out there. So
we can look at the things, that you're talking about with they, them, the, us, etc.
Jason, are you it only exists in the physical realm type of thing? Or are you one that says there could be those spiritual powers that, for lack of a better way to describe them,
incorporeal entities? Do you believe that?
I'm wondering where your argument would come from on this. Would it be one of, hey, there's some credence to what the professor says, or there's not?
On a certain level, there could be.
Okay.
The problem is, and maybe this is just the pragmatist in me, right? That stuff's all well and good. There really isn't a whole hell of a lot we can exactly do about it right now.
Yeah, that's true.
And we have to sit and examine, and look into peer into the crystal ball and look into the past and look into where all of these things came from eon ago. The nature of man and all this stuff, right? There is only so much that can be gleaned that can be applied to solve where we're at today. And we have to look at the problems that we're dealing with and how they're being dealt with today.
How do you arrive at that? You've surmised that there's not information available that of the realm of what I'm speaking of, that that information is not available, ergo it's not applicable and not worthy of seeing if it is actually available? In other words,
I think you're talking about you can't go to the file cabinet and pull out the file folder and go,
right,
here it is.
Right. The physical, if it's not material, it's like that's the big problem with science and physics. It's unless it's observable, it has to be mathematically made up. And then that can't be tested because we don't even look at the right stuff for the right reasons as far as our sciences are concerned. So I think
Steph just hit on this too. They could tap into demonic energy, if you want to call it that, But what we have right in front of us at this moment is human and needs to be stopped. So while there might be something behind it, which I agree with you, Professor, there's something behind it.
There's more going on here.
You've
got to, but you have to deal with the problems that you can actually deal with right now.
We can't go gunning down demonics.
But that's my whole point.
And then deal with the other thing after.
Jason, is that there's nothing we can do to deal with the problems you guys have been talking about. There's nothing.
Well, there is, and it comes from things like good information. All right, like Scotty. Well, here's okay. So we'll permit me to delve into this a bit.
I'm just trying to get clarification.
I think it was Steph who said you needed 40 minutes to go on. I'll only take 30. Okay.
You're being generous tonight.
I can do that in 17.
You probably can, Scotty.
I can do it in 12 if you let me talk fast.
No, you can't.
You know the interesting thing about the three of us? You put a nickel in us and we'll talk for hours.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know, the one of the big things, and Scotty, I know how you kind of feel about things with this, because you have a TikTok channel thing, and you do use that, and I do understand that. But here's the thing: you have platforms, and I'm gonna beat up on TikTok for a hot minute.
Okay.
You have platforms like TikTok where it is a snippet, right? You get that, you know, what's the max amount of time you can do something on TikTok, Scotty?
I don't know. All of my stuff goes from 4 to 7 minutes usually.
Okay. But a lot of times you see there's limitations with the size of stuff, right? So when you have a limited amount of time to discuss a topic that is as deep as it is broad in all of its intricacies, and you condense and simplify those things down into a minute and 30 soundbite, a 30-second
141 characters on
you have to have an elevator pitch. You got 30 seconds. Convince me.
But the thing is you cannot resolve the issues that we see playing out in Israel and Palestine, in Ukraine and Russia, and with the Chinese in 441 characters or a minute and 30 seconds or a 15-second sound clip. And so the problem lies in the fact that information gets so condensed, or not condensed rather, but stripped down to such bare bone things, right? And that is how we have constantly been fed things for so long now.
Sound bites.
People can only process in that, right? Like to have somebody here read this one chapter. I
will write a paragraph in response to somebody who said something in a sentence, and they're like, "Oh, you're so verbose. You talk too much." And I'm like,
right.
I typed a paragraph that would take me 2 minutes to say.
Exactly.
If I read it out loud.
You can't strip these things down to the most infinitesimal point and think you've encapsulated the entirety of the concept, the concept of what's going on. And so one of the biggest things that we can do is, quite frankly, in the most brutally and viciously and gory way, eviscerate platforms like TikTok and other things that do that, because
the soul of wit, but yes, linked
because the algorithms that are in there, and not just TikTok, it's also in Facebook, it's also in Instagram, it's also on your Twitter X feeds, your whatever.
Sure.
All right. The algorithm that is in there calculates how you do things. It sees how you're clicking on stuff, and how there is a reason why children in China, and as much as I hate the CCP and everything they stand for, you got to give credit where credit is due, because to do anything less than is not fair. All right. But there is a reason why children in China can only use the Chinese equivalent of TikTok, right? The program that parent company ByteDance has put together, all right? They only get it 40 minutes a day.
Yep.
Right? There is a reason why, people under a certain age can't have any more than that per day. And then the information that is only allowed to be shared on there, right? It's STEM stuff. It's, be an astronaut. It's how to do this, how to do that. Meanwhile, we're over here, putting our genitals in a vice and slamming a book down on them and laughing about it. All right. Like, that's the thing is that's where one of the big problems lies is information, how much information is given and how it's processed. If we can find a way to actually, okay, here's the whole story, and we'll take it to the Israel-Palestine thing. If we can find a way to curb stomp Hamas's PR game, okay, and actually get real information out there and not information of, they're digging up all of these bodies by this hospital. When in reality, it's like, hold on, wait a minute. Weren't you burying that exact same trench you're digging up by that hospital 2 months ago?
Yep.
Weren't you putting all that think, and now you're saying this is a big surprise and you're trying to spin it on the IDF having done that? No, my guy, that's not how this works. There's entirely too much evidence out there, but it gets overwhelmed by the 30-second sound clip, the 5-second orgasm, the chocolate chip cookie. All right.
Yeah, you're talking about a dopamine hit of information that everybody gets that's carefully crafted and curated, and it's force fed.
Exactly.
Because if you have a limited amount of information feeds, particularly if it's any of the legacy stuff, you're doomed. I mean, you are not getting brainwashed, you are getting brain stained, and you need a good brainwashing to get that shit out of there. Sarah, I haven't
you need a good brain pressure washing is what
right? Yeah, good.
We like to call it brainwashing.
Yeah.
In the Midwest, washing. The wash rag.
Sarah, I haven't talked to you
Sarah,
and I don't remember the last time. How are you?
Oh, it's a Monday. Could be doing better.
Monday.
So you had a shitty Monday
day.
Not for very much longer.
Yeah, not for very much longer. I just wanted to hop on 1 second because you were talking a little bit earlier about the philosophical aspect, and I can't really resist that. The other stuff I'm not going to really get into because it's
Monday. Come on.
But you were
She's
saying
had a day,
earlier
Scotty.
about conflict.
I get it.
About conflict. Conflict usually arises when there are differences, right? When things come in conflict with each other. So the only way to resolve conflict is to adopt the philosophy of unity of being. That comes. So everything, we have. If you look at a magnet, you have a south pole, a north pole. We say they're opposite, but they reside in the same object. So as far as, the whole political situation, that's a complex thing, which we could try and apply it, but it'd be very difficult in the way we all are. But even in our approach to perspective of our place, where we are on Earth in the universe, we're all part of something. So the whole idea of unity of being is, we're all part of something. We all have interactions. We're all connected in some way, whether it's through conflict or however you choose to define whatever relationship you have, whether it's people or objects or whatever. So as far as to resolve conflict, so that's as far as I can tell, and I've thought about this for a whole 5 minutes. since
That's the best kind. That's the best kind, Sarah. Drop it.
Yep.
Right. So as far as taking a holistic approach is either way, because each side is, like you, Professor, was saying, each side is doing the same thing to each other, back and forth, back and forth. People are dying on both sides. Israelis are dying, Palestinians are dying. Take away that label, people are dying. So as our place, as we are on the whole on this earth, what role we choose to play as a country, as a nation, as a person, what do we do about it? Because, and I think some of the gripe is in regards to the US is, okay, who's going to be the parent? The US. As far as, so the parents have to be involved in every step of the way of what's going on, who's doing what, all this stuff. And that in itself is exhaustive and tiring, which, and I know some people have.
We can hear your TV, Jason.
I can hear that. Yeah, I was wondering where that was coming from.
Yeah.
Are you watching TV while we're doing this show?
Yeah, he's clearly just
checked out. He's
no,
ready to move.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, he's playing games.
Yeah. So, Sarah, I'm really intrigued by what you're saying, because I think that not only are you clearly spot on, but it almost sounds to me like you've been reading some informatica or something.
No, that's Ibn Arabi. So
that's what?
The philosopher Ibn Arabi, the unity of being. So it's an Islamic philosopher, which most Islamic philosophers don't really get out there. They don't get as much traction as Plato and Aristotle.
They made a big impact back before the Crusades, when the Moors just went everywhere, all over Europe, dropping knowledge and art and technology and stuff. Math.
Yeah, well, I mean, if people haven't forgiven us after we dropped algebra on everybody, so.
Well, that was,
algebra came from Islam.
Oh. Yeah, well, I mean, even numbers were
Arabic numbers is that we use an Arabic number system, or Arabic numbers based.
Yeah, but
number
people
system.
Don't realize that. They think it's something else. But that's another example of
shows you what I know.
We've been told about our history for the last 150, 200 years in particular. And there's something like about 1,000 years that are missing in our actual history. And there's
it's
a bunch
funny that you say stuff like that, Prof.
But there's really scholarly work and evidence that's available that you can check out and make that determination for yourself. But my point is that whether that 1,000 years is missing or not, the point that I made, and I think that Sarah is echoing, is that at the end of it, it's humans, and it's the way that we just deal with each other and have been doing since we knew we existed and started writing it down, because it's innate nature for the whole idea of greed, which has been, Milton Friedman does a great job of just destroying Phil Donahue. Phil Donahue. He's on Phil Donahue, and he says, well, tell us about, what is this? Why is greed good or bad? And he says, well, it's not bad. It's actually very good. It's what stimulates everything that goes in motion forward for an economy. The way that it's used and abused is where the issues are, and those are the extremes. But Sarah, you were saying that everything is based on that oneness of self being individual yet within the collective, right?
No. Oneness of self is, well, I mean, I'm probably gonna, get struck by lightning or something. It's our
that happens on this show quite a bit, yes.
Well, but I mean, our oneness.
You haven't lost anyone yet.
Yeah. Our oneness has a place within the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. It's like being part of a cell, and we're all different organelles within the cell. So, I mean, we're all cogs in the giant wheel, or giant clock, or whatever you want to call it, the watch clock. So we all have a role in how we interpret our reality, and how we use our perceptions to move within this reality.
Mm-hmm.
And every movement or thing that we do, the universe adjusts. If I get up and move over there, it's not like this place that I was, it's filled with, energy and cells, or whatever you want to call it, atoms. I mean, atomic stuff. So there's no void. So it's all part of one thing. I mean, that's sort of the Arabic thing. I mean, but it's only one perspective, and I usually hold, multiple perspectives. It depends on my mood. So as far as
that's the secret to women, is understanding that they have multiple perspectives. It depends on their mood.
Understanding doesn't come.
I thought the professor was going to say that understanding that they have multiple personalities, and then a fight was going to break out. That's
yeah, we get along well. It's just when men get involved. So
I don't know. I've seen some pretty catty, petty stuff coming out of the ladies that had nothing to do with men.
Yeah, there's some really strange stuff going on in the estrogen-based carbon units around the planet. I mean, there seems...
Yeah, and I was complaining last time about how, at least the men that I know around me, they're all worse gossips than women are. But to bring it back to, the main point, and it was also another point, that Jason brought up, what I think was very valid, is...
Wait. Make a note. Which one was this?
I'm talking about history and how.
That's right. I said something that was valid, Professor.
That's
why I would like you to mark this so we know what it was.
I would like you to bask in my glory for a moment. Somebody somewhere said I had something that was valid.
Yeah, I'm sure that whatever it was that he said that you thought was valid at the moment just probably disappeared, and it wasn't that important, right?
Well, no.
No, get it out, Sarah. He's trying to distract you,
right? He's filibustering again. So, but in terms of history, our perception of history. I mean, this is all Jason's jam as far as interpretation of history. We are, we with our limited minds, we're unable to understand the scope of our reality and its working and passage through time. It's like you guys were talking about earlier about TikTok and try to understand someone's life through snippets. It's the same thing if you watch like a reenactment show, on a historical reenactment show. You're not going to get every perspective. You're not going to get the overall feeling of it. Because depending on who was there, because everybody present would have their own perspective. I mean, even us sitting here in one place discussing one topic, everybody has a different perspective.
Yeah.
Everybody is assessing reality. And then if you tomorrow or Wednesday, if you ask us what happened today, all of our answers would be different. So
well, except for those of us that are
except
right,
for the fact that I'm right. So
yeah, that's my point. Except for those of us
agreed upon.
Except for those of us who are right all the time, we don't have to second guess ourselves.
It's not you. That's
well, I mean, I'm right all the time for me in my reality.
Right. That's right. That's what I'm talking about.
And there it is.
Somebody's got to be right, because if everybody's wrong, there has to be somebody that's right. And if everybody's
right,
everybody's right.
And if everybody's right,
I'm going to let you in on a secret.
We're dealing with.
I'm going to let you in on a secret. I'm going to let you in on a secret. Look, if we are all wrong together, they can't do anything. All right, we can't get in trouble if we're all wrong together. We can't get in trouble. That's a big lesson you need to understand.
And
I would
put it as that we're both of the same state. We're right and wrong at the same time. It depends on what context and what's subjective. Right?
Yeah.
But that starts to sound to me like relativity. I don't. So you're saying?
So now
I'm a believer in absolutes. I believe there are absolutes in the universe. I don't believe in relatively. Well, that's
Scotty,
Sarah's
would
truth
you give an
and
example?
Professor's truth.
Right.
Well,
like
Scotty,
Jason is absolutely right. That's an absolute, and the professor is not.
So, yeah, and that
Well,
is
means
a
everybody's
perspective
right and
for
wrong.
each.
Here's
at
an
the same time, so it
absolute.
evens out.
Here's an
That's why
absolute.
the world hasn't imploded.
This is a paintbrush. Now, you can call it a Q-tip if you want. It's still a paintbrush.
To you.
How
What you
define it.
use it for does not change its innate character or attribute.
Don't get me started down that path.
These vice grips, these vice grips are not a pipe wrench. I can use them like a pipe
You can
wrench.
use them as a pipe wrench, but it is a vice grip.
And here I thought I would never get to use the Republic.
That was nicely done. I liked it.
I just wish more people would understand that we live in a republic, not a true democracy.
Yes.
But that's a different discussion for a different.
We're not in a democracy. We are not a democracy. It's not our form of government.
Well, we're not a pure democracy. We're not a true democracy. And
not a direct democracy.
We're not a direct. Well, right. We're a democratically elected representative government.
We are. Let me take Jason's advice when he's so eloquently and very loquacious and with a lot of verbosity and
blah,
went
blah,
on
blah.
went on about something that at the end of it, I thought he said it's complete bullshit. So whatever he said before that is, I think, what he meant. But the point you were making is about making something concise, short, precise, consumable, right?
Right.
Brief.
So let me try to make it those things, and while making it
my point
Let me
was
make a
that
verbose
there's
point
something-
about brevity.
I will try to add some flavor, making it tasty and delicious.
All right.
All right.
Well, I can do that. I have togarashi. We'll make it really flavorful.
That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do, Jason. Whenever you get your Wi-Fi set up at the new place, you should get everybody on and have a drink.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just not during the work
You can have
week.
one of your drinking nights.
Sarah, you need to join us for a drink.
Yeah, I'm always the DD.
You're always on board for that.
Make sure everybody gets home.
For that binge.
Home to the point. So
there you go. Sarah will be the designated driver.
Somebody has to take responsibility, right? Like Scotty, I am intuiting that you are about to take responsibility for this Gab Fest and bring it to a close. Could I be right?
We had a little lull right there, and I went, I think it's time to quit for the night. I think it would be fun to go for another hour or two.
Oh, yeah.
But once
It's
again, we
Monday.
can reserve that for the end of the week.
We need to figure out a way to just do this all in person.
Well, yeah, I would love to have an in-studio with big overstuffed chairs and boom mics, out in front of us. We're, and we're having our drinks and go ahead.
The
Sarah,
thing is, you've got to have the camera angles.
You do. We'd have to have more than one camera set up.
Have that.
Flattering for myself and Scotty and not for you. That's
We'll work on you guys to get you level up
we'll
a
have
little
the
bit.
stage lights over you. Scotty and I will use a little bit of stage makeup. All right.
yes.
Meanwhile, you'll just Richard Nixon it.
Jason
and
will be
we'll
like, need a little more mascara there because it's gotta make sure my eyelashes show.
I think he needs eyelashes myself.
He needs
Little eyelashes
yes.
and rouge. Because he's got all that other,
Little
that
rouge,
other
yeah.
turf going around his mug. It's
You know
like,
what I
just
love
add
watching when I see some of the
long lashes.
news programs, and you can tell. You look at the news programs and go, "Well, they got a new makeup person on."
Yes,
because somebody looks a little more rougey.
Well, and that's actually something that's hilarious,
I just
right?
saw that the other day.
You see that stuff so often, and you see it in TV shows too, and especially like with the capabilities in terms of definition that we're getting out of TVs and what cameras are able to pick up and things like that. Like, it is harder and harder to disguise or
Yeah,
makeup, and it's
truth.
pretty hilarious.
It is.
I have seen myself that there are a number of people that should not be seen in 4K.
Oh, yes.
I'm probably one of them.
You know,
like,
I was
no.
surprised
Definitely
that
one of them.
with all the different little TV stints I've done,
Hmm.
never been makeup for talking heads. They
Yeah.
never put makeup. And I'm glad of that. I'm fine with that. But I was a little surprised they didn't do that, because you're like, well, we could all look really pasty for you. Maybe that'll, maintain our reputations as talking heads. People that research in the dark in their little offices have no skin pallor, but no skin tone.
Well, I
But-
think it's really funny when you look at stuff like that it goes beyond like the makeup. you see it goes even in the editing, the live editing of things, and not trying to get into any sort of politics of it thing, but just observation, and you start to look at stuff like during all of the campaign stuff, like back in 16 with Trump, and then even in 20, like you see immediately the orange filter comes out
right
on certain channels, but then on other ones you don't see it at all, and it's like what a way to weaponize.
Purposely
Who has
influence you
time to look at this?
a certain thing.
What's that, Sarah?
Yeah, I
Who
don't.
has
Yeah, I
time to
agree,
look
Sarah.
at that? I mean,
What,
Right.
you don't notice that?
no,
Don't
I
have
mean,
time to look at
I
it.
can see that.
I mean, to actually, devote brain cells. I mean, yeah, you notice it for a couple seconds, but I mean, for it to be retained into your brain until you use
Well,
it.
Well, I've got
It's because they made such a big deal about it. Where do
You
you
know-
think we got the whole orange man bad? Right? It's because of somebody putting a filter over CNN's friggin' feed.
That's right. And I've got all these theater lights that
Yeah.
I got from Uncle Dave that I got to put up in the rafters.
Still, it's been
Oh,
over
do
a
they
year.
do they have the
canister
gels?
lights with the barn doors on them?
Okay.
A bunch of them over there. And he gave me a whole box full of gels.
Yep.
So I can do some color. Like I got this green thing going, but it's not reading. That's why it's pulsating.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna do some gels and stuff. When you're all pasty and pale, you just put on a little orange gel. You go, I'm 10.
Well, and that's I think Sarah, to your point, with we see these things for a little clip. When you have people like like myself or Scotty, who have done a lot of things that are like theatrical in nature, lighting is such a big part of that.
It is.
And like one of the first questions you say, oh yeah, I have these theater lights. I was like, oh, do they have the mountings for the gels? Did you get gels? Like we see.
Well, you look
this
at
stuff.
Professor Bauer. He's
Not
whether
actually
he does
that
it
tan.
deliberately or
That's,
not. He's theatrically lit right now.
Yes.
His background is theatrically lit. You see the curtain. Now, theatrical could be, I've got a lamp that I've taken the shade off of, and it's sitting over here,
Mhm.
and I've got, my ring light over there, and I got this with a pie tin behind it to reflect light or an umbrella or whatever. So your theatrical lighting can be cheap, or it can be
So,
like Jason's with cords
just-
running from it.
I mean, basically, it's icing on the data cake because I mean, either
Yes.
way, we're supposed to be paying attention to what you're saying, what you're trying to convey.
Right.
Oh,
I
But
thought you
were
we're
talking
distracted
being
by it
icing.
because hey, look, this guy's Dayglow
Squirrel.
orange.
Sarah, I thought you were talking about me being
Excuse me.
icing on the cake. Was
No.
No.
was
No.
that- Oh,
No.
You know
Well-
what though? I look. I'm not saying you're not something good though, Professor. You are the cardboard under the cake. You are the foundation. I mean,
Cardboard
it's
beneath layer
a shaky
one.
foundation.
but I'll go with that. But there's also a plate under my cardboard, so just so you know, it's not a solid foundation.
Oh my, you can take that. You can keep going with that. I'm the countertop on which the plate goes. It supports the cardboard on which you put the first layer of the cake.
All you have to tell him is that he's your huckleberry, right?
And Sarah's the frosting. There
Well,
you go.
But see, is it Huckleberry or Hucklebearer?
It's
I think it's
Hucklebearer. I
supposed to
heard.
be Hucklebearer, but I
Yep.
was a
Yeah.
misnomer.
Yeah, it's the Bernstein or the Bernstein, whichever one you like. But just a real quick comment on the lighting thing, because
Yeah.
it's important to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have what Scotty sees as theatrical lighting. All I have is two rings, two ring lights, and a light above my head in the room. It's on a rheostat.
Yep.
And that's it. The rest of the lights are just in the room. I have a blue
And that's
light.
really all it takes if you set it
Yeah.
up right. I've got
That's
a
what I'm
small
saying.
ring light.
No,
The
if I
two
could
ring
take the
lights, a
time to
large
figure out the
one,
lighting
two
in
ring
here.
lights for like $50, and I positioned my camera, and I went, "What can I do on my camera? Make it look
Now, is your
more
camera
natural?"
internal or is it external?
No, it's an external camera. It's
See,
a
now I've got
4K.
an internal
It's a
cam and it
4K camera.
sucks.
Mine's a
I
Nexus,
need to pick up a better
and
camera.
it's a 4K, and I think I paid $120 for it.
There you go.
It's great. I mean, I can control my pan, my tilt, my zoom, I can control all the little delineations.
I got my pan and tilt.
dial
right
it
here.
in for the
That's
lighting
my
that I
computer. You know,
Channeling godlike abilities, right? Your master
Analog.
universe.
I can't do anything with focus right now. This camera is so sucked up that you notice my video is not sharp, but that's because the camera sucks. It's old and it needs replacing. I need to just get an external cam.
I highly recommend the Nexigo, Nexigo.
I got a couple of cams that are
they're
set
really
aside
good.
in my Amazon account.
Yes.
But see,
The ones
here's
that
the
lurk
thing.
in the cart.
Here's the thing that this is the last that I will contribute to this conversation, and it will be right up front, admittedly a shameless plug.
All right.
So I've relaunched the Nexus,
Nexus,
nexusnextcast.com, and both my old Professor Bauer channel is now Robert Bauer the Nexus. My Nexus YouTube channel is the Nexus Robert Bauer. So
Hold on, wait. Are you calling yourself the Nexus, or
I am where it all connects, baby? I just
Kevin
God.
Costner is Robin Hood.
I've been trying to tell you all night that all the little
Nexus
nuggets that you've been rolling around in your noggin and
Professor
trying to
Bauer.
bounce them around is all connected, and it's much bigger and deeper than all that. But anyway, the show is up. I've done 4 interviews. John Seri on the sound of space, Tom Blue Wolf on indigenous traditions and wisdom,
Oh, I wanna
Karen
hear that.
McDonald. Yeah, you'll love the conversation with Tom. We're doing a follow-up going back to I don't think you mentioned AI earlier, but anyway, he just went to Germany, to the German equivalent of our MIT, and in their advanced and artificial intelligence department, they had Tom come in and add data to the system on indigenous teachings and traditions.
Nice.
So it's going to be real. I'm going to have a follow-up with them. I want to know what the hell went on there. And then the latest one I just put out last week was with Brian Sang, and the title is "Fortune Favors the Prepared." And Brian is involved with the UFO Full Disclosure Now movement. They got a big conference in middle of July on my birthday, and he's a big-time prepper out of Nevada. So I encourage you to go to the YouTube channel. They're all on my old Professor Bauer, which is now Robert Bauer. So all the interviews are up there. I've got little short clips and little snippets from the conversations up there as well. And then you can also find them all on Nexus Nextcast. That's NEXCAST.com.
Are you
So-
one
You have
X
to
or
get the
two
shirt.
X's?
Just have it on the shirt.
I'm serious
Oh,
because
yeah.
I can't remember. I had a friend who had
he probably fancies
did an
himself
Nexus
3X,
site
but
and he used 1 or 2 X's because somebody.
No,
else
I'm
had
one
it.
X, so it's Nexus
1X.
NEXUS,
Right.
and then NEXCAST, Nextcast.
Got it.
So it's nexusnextcast.com, and all the bio shit, and there's all kinds of stuff I'm doing on these shows, and so it's now launched, and I encourage everybody to go check it out.
Right on.
And
So
link
that's
Right
my
on.
shameless
Do it.
plug. T-shirt and merch coming soon.
There it is. All right. Well, and on that shameless plug note, we'll probably end the show tonight.
I'm glad I squeezed that in.
I'm glad you did too. So, Sarah, thank you for being here.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Wait, before you go. That okay sounded like, okay, yeah, you're letting me go first. I had more to say.
No, I don't.
What else on your mind?
I'm all right.
No. I'm serious. You got something you want to talk about?
No, not really. I mean,
No.
it's midnight, so
You're fine. You just end the show now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Sarah, it's good to see you again, or hear you
Good to
again.
see you. Yeah, good to see you, Sarah.
And I, the one who never brings up the fact that you're not on camera, it's good to hear you.
One of these days. She keeps saying one of these days.
I don't say that.
Oh, you don't?
You keep saying that, Scotty.
What can we do to get you to come on camera?
Absolutely nothing.
I'm staying out of this one.
Sarah, at least you could put up a for your profile pic. You could have something that maybe it could be you and it really blurred, which would be very intriguing, or something else.
Your
but
hair hanging in your face.
That pink S just doesn't seem to give you. It doesn't rep you well. I mean, it's not representing. It's not the Sarah that we.
Because you're complaining I'm not pink.
Do an AI picture.
Yeah.
We were talking about people not being orange, and now you're complaining about not being pink. You're so colorist.
Colorist.
Guilty as charged.
And then there's me, the equal opportunity hatist. I hate everyone equally.
We don't serve your pink kind. So,
oh
your
God,
pink is just fine. So well, Sarah, thank you for being here.
All right, thanks, guys.
Is it okay to let you go?
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah.
She's like that. You've seen that meme where it's the female astronaut going to the moon, and it's got the transcript. It's like, astronaut, Houston, we've got a problem. Houston, what's a problem? I don't know. Hold on a second. Houston, what do you have a problem? No, I'm not sure what. Never mind. Houston. I mean, it's just like the woman. She just can't figure out what, and then just says, "Screw it, I'm not going to talk."
Well, yeah, because she'll figure it out for herself.
She's gonna. Oh, that's what it is. That's I was trying to figure out what that was. Thank you.
What you need to understand, gentlemen, is that Sarah is a self-rescuing princess, and you should respect that.
Oh,
I do. Somehow it's not relevant at all, but I'm reminded of a meme.
Uh-oh.
It was a husband and wife, and the woman says, "I got to think of how it goes," and it was something like the wife says, "You've left all your Star Wars clothes in a pile on the floor."
Oh yeah.
And the husband is like,
yeah.
Let's see.
What
does the husband say? He says something like,
"Do you see any stormtroopers? No, any Jedi around or something?"
No. I'm trying to remember how this thing goes, and he's something like, "I'll use the Force to pick it up or something." And she goes, "God, I hate you." He goes, "Yes, use your hate." It was a husband and wife exchange. So it was funnier if you actually know the lines. So. There you go. Good night, Sarah.
Your misinformation.
Oh, you got more?
No,
Sarah?
I said talk about your misinformation. Isn't that right,
Okay.
Jason?
Yeah. Yep.
You have a good night, Sarah.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Sarah.
All right, Professor. You have a good night, too. You look good over there. Your color's good. Your lighting is good. There's that white bit of your whiteboard over there.
Orange.
So thank you for that, and I'll freely admit that I've been working on it as I've been doing these shows.
The only thing that distracts me is the whiteboard sticking out on the side.
Yeah, and there's supposed to be a bunch of stuff on there that I keep not getting to.
Yeah, it should be a chalkboard, like a blackboard with equations and chalk or something.
Yeah, but it's got to be one of the flippy ones on the stand.
Yeah, the flippy ones.
Yeah, I got enough room for
when
that.
they flip it over.
I ain't got enough room for that, but just going back to the whole lighting and camera thing, there's like $200 in the look that I've got right now between the camera and the ring lights.
And
That's
it shows.
And yeah, and I've been working on this shit for over a year trying to figure out, how do I get something that looks like it's
how does that
okay broadcast kind of quality.
Over to the left, another 2
And
inches. There we go. There we go. The shadow of my nose has to be just. Oh,
Maybe this summer, once I get in and settled into my house at St. Louis, I'll and my youngest comes out. My youngest does theater tech. I'll set up a little area so I'm not like, there's my dirty stove. What's up?
Yeah, and do us all a favor and get yourself a fucking mic, will you?
I know. Well, I'm running it all through my phone.
You have a great voice, and it sounds like it's coming through a
it echoes off of your kitchen appliances.
So. Yeah,
probably does. So I'll put some egg crate foam on the front of the stove. That should should help. Dangle a little from the chain for the light.
All you need for the ambiance in that room right now is a bare bulb hanging from some wires on the ceiling. There's my lighting system. So yeah,
there we go.
Here.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait. I need a 60 watt, not a 40 watt for radio. So.
Well, gentlemen, thanks for letting me come in and step all over your show and toss some shit at you. Because you know what?
What
if it's not you guys, somebody's going to get it. So it might as well be people I know.
That's right.
Right?
I'll go say all this stuff where I know it's safe.
That's right.
I got to get this shit out, and I know just where to go.
I know right where to practice. This is practice run for his show.
That's right.
That's what it is. I think that's what it is. How many holes can these guys try to shoot in things that I can successfully?
He's taking notes, man. He's going to review this thing tomorrow and go, oh, that point right there.
Well, I do have one other quick bit of
said algorithm twice. I
want to share with you guys because I just went through this and found it like unbelievable. So I've been testing all these different platforms to do the show with. All of my shows are one-on-one recorded. There's no chat. There's no other interaction. It's just the person and I. Mm-hmm. And then I publish them as premieres, right? And then I jump in the chat.
Sure.
So I've been looking for platforms. Zoom is out there, StreamYard, which we're on now. And then I found Riverside. And I went, Riverside, what the hell's that? This thing has got, it's a publishing platform for audio video.
Okay.
You can stream up to 6 different additional platforms if you're going live. And it has a bunch of AI built in. So it records your show, and then it turns around and does an entire transcript, and then applies AI to the transcript and creates a summary of the show, the takeaways from the show.
Oh, wow.
Sound bites for the show.
I'm looking at it right now. Studio quality recordings, lightning fast editing.
Oh, it's going to blow your mind. It makes clips. Riverside.fm. The other thing is that this weekend, Saturday night, I did a 7-hour live stream to 4 different platforms and 5 different channels at the same time.
7-hour live stream?
And did you have all the same people who started with you at the end?
God, no, I knew you could talk, but holy crap.
It started with me and Gerald, the guy out of the Midwest that I've been doing shows with.
Sarah.
Yeah,
me too, Sarah.
I've got it. I can show you what it said.
I'd love to see how AI
you got to let us know. Does it just come up with like a ...
Yeah.
Actually
WTF question mark?
I'm really surprised. The spelling and the punctuation has been 95% accurate.
Oh wow!
I had to correct only things that it didn't understand the word. It spelled it wrong.
Right. And that's something that would be really useful for me, because one of the things that we try to do in my career field is do oral interviews.
Oh, you would love Riverside. It would be
the only problem is when you start delving into if I start delving into classified topics, I can't You know,
Yeah,
I
well,
can't do
yeah,
something like that.
you have to manage that. But my point is this.
Yeah.
So Riverside has all this AI post-production tool set that is just awesome.
Yeah.
Saves me 3 or 4 days of work. It does it in an hour. Okay.
That's cool.
That is highly, especially if you're trying to do shows and like what I'm doing.
Yep.
Perfect tool. But on Saturday night, I used Rumble Studio. Rumble Studio doesn't have all the fancy stuff that StreamYard does. It does have an aggregated chat. There's not as much flexibility on moving people around like you got in StreamYard and all of that. But it handles guests. So the first hour and a half, it was me and Gerald. And then we took a break and we played some music from my label on the YouTube channel. It just is a little intermission. And then we came back and we said, okay, let's talk. We went and talked for about an hour and a half. And then we had our first guest. And Heidi jumped in and she came in for about 45 minutes and she bailed. Gerald and I did a little intermission and we went and refilled our beverages. We came back, turned the show back. Well, the show was on. You jumped back in the show. And then another guy showed
We
up.
were drinking.
And we had another guest, Jim Goodall. He came in and he stayed for a little while and then he left.
How
And
many
then we had a
people
guy-
stay tuned for an all-day stream, though? How often can you do those?
Scotty, I was
Every day
blown
of the
away
week.
between. So I streamed to my YouTube, to Gerald's YouTube, to my Rumble, to my Facebook, and to my X account. On those 5 different channels, 4 different platforms, there was over 400 views.
Nice.
And I'm going, who the hell is watching this shit for 7 hours? But we basically
Same question we all have.
right.
Yeah.
But my point is, aside from the content and the length, we just went because people kept showing up. I was sending out invitations, and this one guy even came on with his guitar and his all of his equipment, and he did a live performance on the show, and it sounded fucking awesome. So my point is that we tested the shit out of Rumble Studio, and at this point I
make my guitar playing sound good.
And Rumble Studio is free.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool.
So I'm about ready to go all Rumble unless I find a reason not to, but I tested the shit out of it Saturday night was my point. It no buffering, the latency was non-existent. All of the audio video from whoever was in sounded great. I was like, holy shit. And this is free and it's on Rumble where I don't have to worry about copyright strikes and getting shut down because I say things like, hey, if your gender at birth doesn't define your identity, then how does changing it affirm it?
There it is.
I mean, come on.
That question.
I be confused. And that logic applies to way too many things. But anyway, so you guys, just from a platform and a technology perspective, Riverside FM, definitely check it out. Rumble Studio, you might want to look into it. It's free and it does really nice job.
That's cool. I'll look into that Riverside. I've got it up. All right, Professor, get out of here.
All right, I'm out. Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks,
I'll talk
everybody.
to you soon.
Hey, bro.
See ya. And also, Jason, time for you to go too. Thanks for being here, brother.
Thanks for having me, as always.
I appreciate your presence.
Well, I appreciate being here and put up with.
Next time. We got a little Robertson tomorrow.
Hopefully, I'll be able to
5 p.m. Eastern.
I may be hip deep in trying to close out some stuff for work because my move date is getting uncomfortably close.
Uncomfortably close. I hear you.
Yeah, movers show up Thursday. So.
Oh, well, it's the first tomorrow, isn't it? No, tomorrow's the 30th.
Yeah. So Thursday is the 2nd. So.
There you go. I'll hang in there. I'll see you between now and then at some point.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Have a good night. See you.
All right.
All right, everybody else, time to get out of here. Let's go. Let's go home if you're not home already. And boy, that's all I got to say. So live long and prosper.